Council Member Katz, and Council Vice President Andrew Friedson will be with us momentarily. Today we are looking at items on the FY24 operating budget and CIP amendments. We're going to talk about the Community Engagement Cluster, Public Information Office, MC 311, and the Merit System Protection Board. And we're going to kick off our morning with the Community Engagement Cluster, and we have a number of guests here. So nice to see everyone. But I will turn it over first to Council staff to walk us through the packet.
Good morning, Chair Stewart and Councilmember Katz. My name is Carolyn Chen, Legislative Analyst with the Montgomery County Council. Today in the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee, we'll be talking about how the county communicates to its residents. This is the Office of Legislative Oversight report that was released in February 23. The GO committee last year is the committee that commissioned this report to do a full inventory of social media and communication sites across all county agencies. Shout out to Blaze and Kristen and OLO for the formatting inspired by Sports Illustrated Fantasy Football. Great. Quick overview on first item today is Community Engagement Cluster. There is a point of correction. Thank you very much to OMB for pointing this out to me. In page 2, under fiscal year 24 fiscal impact and considerations, there's a summary table of lapse and vacancies by department. The Silver Spring Urban District and Wheaton Urban District are actually reviewed on a different committee and a different time. So I just want to flag that the numbers here are inclusive of the urban district vacancies, so the vacancy rate is actually lower for CEC. As you can see, most of the vacancies are in the urban districts. Great. Moving forward. The County Executive has transmitted a fiscal year 24 recommended budget of $8.8 million, which represents actually just 3.3% of the general government and other functions departmental budget. Overall, the CEC represents 0.24% of the county's total operating budget, excluding MCPS. CEC's FY24 recommended budget increase of 16.6% is primarily due to shifts of grant funds from the community grants non-departmental accounts. On page 2, you will see each of the divisions of the CEC, Administration, Commission for Women, Community Partnership, Gilchrist Center, and the Regional Services Directors. In the next section on fiscal impact and considerations, you'll see breakdowns of vacancy and lapse and succession planning information, revenue generating arms of CEC, and racial equity and social justice rating, which CEC has received a 3. Top. Finally, number 4 on page 3 is on growth areas. CEC has been a lead department responsible for the successful increase of resident response rates for Census 2020, which directly results in additional federal funding for the county. So over the next 5 years, investments but in resources and staff to the CEC in preparation for the census in 2030 should be anticipated. Finally, council staff recommends placing programmatic increases in the community engagement cluster in the fiscal year 24 recommended operating budget on the council's reconciliation list as high priority. And on page 2, you'll see highlighted 3 adds to the budget in red for high priority. That's Commission for Women, Community Partnership, and Regional Services Centers. And finally, council staff recommends reviewing CEC vacancies and lapse calculations for possible reductions in the budget and strategies to increase revenue and external grant funding. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much for that overview. Perhaps we can go to page 2 and maybe start with the Commission for Women. If you would like to talk about the work you've been doing and particularly the ask for this budget.
Sure. Good morning. My name is Jody Finkelstein. I am proud to be the Executive Director for the Montgomery County Commission for Women that also supports and oversees the Montgomery County Human Trafficking Prevention Committee. I'm also pleased to say that tomorrow I will be celebrating my 8th anniversary with the county, so it's really a pleasure to be here. Thank you. I don't know. Well, look at the gray, you can tell. So as many of you know, the Montgomery County Commission for Women is an office and advisory board to Montgomery County, and it was formed in 1972 in order to advocate on behalf of women and girls on the local, state, and national level. The funding that we're asking for is a stipend for $10,000 to be able to pay and support our fabulous interns. We started we've always had interns, but we have been working with the University of Maryland School of Social Work now since, I believe, 2018, 2019. In the macro area, my predecessor, Judy Von Prather, had also worked with the School of Social Work, but in more of a clinical capacity. I'm pleased that several of our interns are now employed with Montgomery County government, so we are working very hard to establish a pipeline for our interns. In fact, one of our former interns, Carmen Carrot, is behind me, and she's currently employed with the Montgomery County Commission for Women, and that's one of the reasons why that we are asking for this money. The other reason why we're asking for the $10,000 is to really allow a broader approach to individuals who would like to apply for interns. Many of our interns are working several jobs on top of asking for student loans, on top of going to school full time. So this stipend will certainly help in their professional and personal endeavors.
Great, thank you. And so right now the interns are not paid?
Correct, they're unpaid.
Great. And would you like to talk, I think there's also $25,000 for the Human Trafficking Prevention Committee.
So the Human Trafficking Prevention Committee was actually originally formed as a task force about 6 or 7 years ago, and because of the work that we've been doing, the previous council and previous county executive worked hard to ensure that it became a full-fledged committee through legislation, and right now we're asking for $25,000 in order for us to be able to do additional education and outreach and training. And that education and outreach is really in a three-pronged approach. One is for the general public. The second is we would like to do a lot more outreach for youth, so that way they recognize the signs of grooming and trafficking. And third, we'd also like to do education and outreach for members of Montgomery County government, including first line responders such as law enforcement and fire and rescue.
Terrific. Thank you. Do my colleagues have any questions or? No? All right. I think where'd Ms. Chen go? Sorry, there you are. So I think without hearing any questions or other comments from my colleagues, sorry, you guys take up a lot. This can be added, and I think everyone knows how we're doing the budget this year, is that the council president said that any additional request this year will be put on a reconciliation. So, and so we'll add these two items as high priorities. Great. Thank you very much for that. Community partnerships. If Ms. Vu, you want to review what you've been doing and the ask for this year.
Sure, thank you. It's my pleasure to be in front of you here today as the Director of the Office of Community Partnerships. So we have several requests, and so I think it would be helpful if we just go down one by one. Okay, great. So our office serves as the bridge between county government and the diverse communities that we serve, and also serve as the bridge between communities as well. And that is the overarching mission of our office. We are here to make sure that our communities are represented at the table, not speaking on their behalf, but they're actually at the table so that we can hear their voices while important policy and budget and other important decisions are made. Our first request is to shift $144,612 into the Office of Community Partnerships. These are actually 3 programs that were left over from a policy decision that was made last year to shift the legal immigration services contracts from HHS into the Office of Community Partnerships in order to strengthen coordination and for us to oversee the overarching strategy. These programs were missed last year during that move because they were sitting in the community grants NDA instead of the base budget. And so this proposal is just to move those remaining programs into CEC so we can continue to coordinate and oversee legal immigration service strategy and delivery.
First of all, thank you. Your office has been an incredible resource, and as we got through COVID, really leaning on the Office of Community Partnerships became one of the real secret sauces to how Montgomery County government reached communities that historically we have not done a good job reaching. And one of the things early on that I had seen was how effective your office had been when it came to the complete count census work, which is designed and set up to focus on those communities that are hard to reach, where we have an incentive because federal funding and other aspects are dependent on it, and so we tend to really focus on that, but don't always do that as well in ordinary times. And because the COVID crisis had come just on the heels of it, it forced us to reboot, which I appreciate and I had advocated for, and now we're kind of rethinking whether or not it should take a crisis for us to try to make sure everybody is counted and is part of the services that we're providing to residents. I just wanted to acknowledge that and appreciate that to start.
Thank you so much.
I did have a question on, just to make sure I'm understanding, the sister cities, because there's the 50. I didn't hear you mention that. If you could.
She didn't get to that.
Okay, so we're just okay. So we're just. I don't want us to vote on the community partnerships in total. So we're taking sister cities separately. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. So.
I had a question on that.
Okay, sorry. So I'll wait and yield on that. So we're just talking about the switching over community grants aspect. We'll take that up, and then we'll take up the other office stuff later. Okay, I'll yield back then. So then I'm not to start. I just wanted to acknowledge that.
No, we
and I'll yield back,
no, we appreciate
and then I'll ask
the
my
good
questions
no,
later.
We like it. We like it. Thank
Never
you.
think the same thing again.
That's fine. Okay, so thank you for that comment, and I know we're going to get back to this when we talk to sister cities, but we really appreciate the council's support and leadership in making sure that our communities were counted during the census, and it was a very intense overhaul that was all hands on deck, and we couldn't have done that without the support of council and also my colleagues who are seated with me at the table and behind me today. It really was an incredible partnership that shows the power of collaborative work when we come together. So thank you for that comment. Okay, so are there any other questions regarding the legal service grants, or can I move on?
Move on.
Okay, great. Okay, so the next comment, and thank you for the assist, is the enhancements for language access of a total of $119,613. This goes to exactly what Vice President Friedson was saying. I think we can all agree that one of the biggest lessons learned during the pandemic, and luckily we had started the census work right before the pandemic hit, and so we were already on the ground and already understood what an immense undertaking it was going to be to reach everybody in Montgomery County. And so our lessons learned is to make sure that we're providing accurate, timely, and effective communication and information to all of our communities. And because Montgomery County is one of the most diverse communities in the entire nation, and 1 in 3 of our communities speak another language other than English at home, and 42% come from a migration background, it is really important for us to make sure that we're providing culturally and linguistic appropriate information as quickly as we're putting out English information as well. And so in order to set our departments up for success, meaning that they're able to put out information and services in an accurate and timely manner, the Office of Community Partnerships really needs the additional support this year in order to provide that resource and ongoing support for our departments. The breakdown of the $119,613 is cover costs for a language access policy consultant to come on board, monies for trainings, and I'll come back to these 3 points in detail in a moment. And also for the addition of a half-time Spanish translation specialist for the translations unit. The reason why we need these additional enhancements for this year is because, as you've mentioned, our office is responsible for overseeing language access for all executive branch departments, programs, and agencies. And we only have one full-time language access manager that serves as point on that. And their main job responsibilities are 3 things. One, to oversee policy implementation and development. They have to work with departments on annual language access plans, make sure they're updated, and that they're also in compliance. So that's the policy piece. The second piece that the language access manager is responsible for is for training. So under the current executive order on limited English proficiency, we are required to provide limited English proficient trainings for all frontline employees. All new employees are required to take the training within 3 months of being hired, and ongoing employees are required to take the trainings every 3 years. So that is a massive piece in of itself, and actually I'm the one that's teaching the course right now. And then third bucket is to manage translations projects. And as you know, a couple of years ago, we created the very first centralized translations unit within county government in the region. It is a phenomenal group of 13 employees that are certified multilingual employees that are able to provide translations for departments in the top 6 spoken languages in the county. And so the language access manager has to oversee all the translation projects that are coming in from the departments, manage the 13 staff, and get the projects back to departments, and also, like I said, oversee the policy development, implementation, and compliance monitoring, and the training as well. And so, again, if we're going to be serious about making sure that departments are set up for success, meaning that they're able to provide culturally and linguistically appropriate information, we have to be able to provide them the support and resources in order to do so. And so these enhancements will allow us to expand the trainings, make sure that we're taking a really deep dive into the language access plans of departments, and monitoring their performance around their ability to provide interpretation and translations as well. And so that's the total amount request.
Thank you, and I just want to say thank you for your work in this area. I mean, it's so essential, and I just want to say thank you to your office for the help when we were dealing with the Arai fire. Because we had multiple languages to communicate with folks in, particularly like the day of, but then weeks afterwards, and having that resource to call upon so quickly and so professionally was really key to making sure people who were in a very traumatic space were able to hear in the language they were most comfortable with the information that was very complex. So I just thank you and for all the work in that. My colleagues, is there anything else on that?
While we're in the thank you department, I know that Vice President had to jump in with his thank yous first, but yeah, that's the first thank you guy. But candidly, you all do such a good job, and I'm going to say this. I don't have to say it again. I'm saying this also to others who are on this panel. You all do such a good job that people don't even at times recognize what a great job you do. If you didn't do a good job, believe me, people would recognize the job you're doing. But it's the same thing every day. You all literally are the eyes and ears on the street for so many of us, and you do such a wonderful job. So I appreciate you, and and you and everybody else on this panel. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, I was saying it earlier, and I'll say it again, it was specifically related in many ways to these service enhancements. We had a point in time where Nancy Navarro, our colleague, was interpreting county documents during COVID, which is just not an acceptable situation to be in for a county where we have 1/3 of our residents who are foreign born, where we have the type of diversity of languages being spoken. And so to have the Office of Community Partnerships that's able to do this work, and I'm told that I used to say culturally competent, but I'm going to say culturally humble, in a culturally humble way, because I think it's a better way to discuss it, as has been suggested, to me is just really helpful. Now, I want to get to this in some of the next items, because I think I see this as core government service. We can't provide services to people we can't engage and connect with. That is, the tree that falls in the forest with no one there to hear it. So those two things are tied, and I think as we go through this and the rest of the conversation today, and as we move through the budget, I do think we have to distinguish between those issues of what's a high priority, what's a priority, and what we're just not going to be able to fund this year. But I just personally want to say this area in terms of language services and making sure that we're reaching people who are vulnerable, and we're making sure that the services that we're investing in actually get to the places and the people who need them the most. That's a core government service, and that's something that we absolutely need to figure out how to make happen and how to fund. So I appreciate this being a high priority, and certainly we'll support it.
Great. Ms. Chen, just making sure, so like the first item under community partnerships, that was a shift, so no fiscal impact. The second item, what I think you're hearing from the committee, is that's definitely a high priority, and I think if there was something higher than a high priority, we probably would agree to that. But
super high.
Yeah, super high. And so let's move on to the third component, the sister cities.
Oh yes, I'm sorry. The 30,000 request for interpretation and interpretation equipment is actually tied to the first 119,613, but it was separated out here. So yes, the enhancements for the interpretation and interpretation equipment go along with that.
So is it 149 then?
Yes,
Okay.
if you were to include those two together.
Yeah, that's fine. We should just include those as the same line item. And thank you for that.
Thank you. Okay, so the third piece is for Montgomery Sister Cities, and so we're requesting $50,000 in order to enhance the support that Montgomery Sister Cities is providing. Montgomery Sister Cities is an incredible program. It has been a powerful program for us when it comes to community engagement and building trust in the communities. And so while the first part of our discussion was focused around making sure that when folks get to county services, that they're able to access services and information in their language, this Montgomery Sister Cities program builds the relationship and trust on the front end so that folks can even feel comfortable to walk through government doors to access services. As you know, we have a very diverse community of folks here. Many of them come from countries where they don't trust their government, and so when they come to Montgomery County, their natural inclination is to not engage with government representatives. And so the Montgomery Sister Cities program that was started in 2009 under the previous county executive, Mike Leggett, helped to build the relationships and trust in the communities that were not represented at any of the council hearings, county executive sessions that we were having. And so what the previous county executive did was establish Montgomery Sister Cities. It's an independent 501c3 that is partnered by our office. It is a independent board along with volunteer sister city committees. We have 5 sister cities in Montgomery County based on the top 5 countries of origin of our foreign-born population. Morazan, El Salvador, Gondar, Ethiopia, Xi'an, China, Hyderabad, India, and Daejeon, Korea. And so there's a board along with 5 sister city committees that are all volunteers. And so what they did since 2009 was incredible in choosing a sister city for the continent of Africa. We had to undergo a very extensive process with our African communities. And they had to agree on choosing one city in one country in the entire continent. And so what you saw was, because communities are so proud of their cultural heritage and their country of origin, communities came out as a part of the process. And there were over 300 community members who were involved in the selection process. And it was an incredible thing for us to witness. And so as a part of that initial engagement, these communities have continued to engage with not only our office, but across the county as well. And we would not have had the census response that we would have had. We would have not had the vaccination rates that we had if it weren't for the trust that was built on the front end. And I cannot stress that enough. While the census is a short period in time of quantifiable and measurable outcomes, the relationship on the front end, as you all know, is very labor intensive. It requires a lot of work, and Montgomery Sister Cities was an incredible tool for us and still continues to be. As you all have seen, if you walk into the Ethiopian community, if you walk into the Salvadoran community, they're so proud of the sister city relationship that Montgomery County has. And that helps to build this welcoming, inclusive community. And so when we need community members to show up and speak, they're comfortable doing so because of the relationships that were built. And so Montgomery Sister Cities is supported by our office, but the only staff that they have is a senior fellow who works 8 to 10 hours a week. And that is it. Everything else is supported by volunteers. And so the request for $50,000 is to provide additional part-time support to Montgomery Sister Cities in order to do more front-facing engagement and also to support funds for some of the outreach activities that occur. Like I said, if you walk into the Salvadoran, Ethiopian, Chinese, Indian, Korean communities, there are a number of visible events that happen that are really critical to the community engagement piece. And then also some funds to support a sister city and joint economic development trip that will occur in the following fiscal year.
Before I turn it over to Council Vice President Friedson, what is the budget now for sister cities?
So I believe the entire budget for Montgomery Sister Cities is $25,000 total. And I believe out of that, $21,000 comes out of our base budget for operating costs.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate. I love the Sister Cities program. It's a great program. So I just want to start and acknowledge that. And I think it is a terrific community-based effort that does leverage quite a lot in the community. I also think it's not a direct service. I also think that we are going to have to make tough choices here. I do differentiate it from the other items that we were talking about. I think in an ideal world we would be funding it to a great extent, but I am not totally comfortable personally putting this on the same level of priority as the prior items, because I do think that this is an enhancement, and I do think that this is great and would be positive, and I'm sure you would use this funding well, and so would the volunteer board and organization. But I think this is a tough budget, and we're going to be making very difficult choices. And I personally think that I would be more comfortable if we signaled the enhancement for language access, the interpreters and interpretation, making sure that those services are getting to the community. To me, that's a high priority, and so I think I would be more comfortable classifying this as a priority, not a high priority, because I do think it is different. It's not to say that it's not important. It's not to say that I don't appreciate everything that Sister Cities does. I think if the budget weren't as challenging, then it would be a different story, and if there was extra resources, this would be an area that I certainly would look to invest in. But I do think it is different. I do think we're going to have to make choices, and I do think it's important that we signal that the other items that we were talking about in your office are absolute essential must-haves, and this would be a real positive that would do a lot of good and help us build additional trust in the community, but I'm not sure it's on the same level personally.
Councilmember Katz?
Well, I appreciate that. I understand we can have discussions about what's a priority and what's a high priority, and you were saying maybe it's super high. I don't know, we should use that term in government, but I think that we have to look at what's a bargain. $50,000 is a bargain if someone feels comfortable in their own home. In Montgomery County is their home. Thank goodness, is their home. I mean, we say with pride that Montgomery County had the top 3 most diverse places in America by Wallet Hub this week. Never exactly sure how they come up with those numbers, but if it works to our benefit, don't question it, you know. And I believe that we need to make certain that people feel comfortable, continue to feel comfortable. It's a sense of pride for us. So whether it should be priority, high priority, a priority, whatever, I'm good. To me, the money's the money, and I'm good with it. I really do. I think it's needed. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you. So I think, as you know, love the Sister City program, and I very much appreciate, as Councilmember Katz talked about, you know, the connection to people, and the economic development piece to it is very important as well. And I do think we have to make distinctions in our budgets, and, you know, we heard a lot during the public hearings last week also from our nonprofit partners and what they're doing in the community. So I think the committee would be safe to say that we'll put this one as a priority, but underscoring how much we do appreciate this program. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else from community partnerships?
No, I believe that's it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for being here. And again, thank you for all your work. And please tell your team we very much appreciate them and look forward to seeing them out in the community more.
Thank you.
Great. I don't think there was anything from the Gilchrist Center. Unless someone wants to touch there, we can just say we love the Gilchrist Center as well. They are a huge benefit to our community. So let's now turn to regional services centers. That's an enhancement of $25,000 to the Neighborhood Events Matching Funds Grant Program, and an addition of a public service internship program of $10,000. Who's taking this? Drew?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Jabril Bande, Director of the East County Regional Office. Thank you for this opportunity. The $25,000 request is to enhance the Neighborhood Events Matching Fund, which is a very small grant program that was designed to promote community building, community engagement, and community capacity building at the grassroots levels. Through this program, we are able to identify, link with, and build partnerships with many non-traditional organizations, so grassroots networks in underserved, marginalized communities. These programs are really designed, again, as I indicated, to promote that capacity building where we've not had much relationships with some of those communities. The programs benefited some of the neighborhood organizations, homeowners associations, block clubs, tenant associations, civic groups that are very active, unlike some of the large organizations that we traditionally have been dealing with. This program also really helps advance our equity and inclusion strategy, in that many of these small organizations traditionally are unknown to us, but we really need them to really help us really get to the height of a greater community engagement strategy. Programs included, programs that were funded including community gardening events, neighborhood cleanup events, movie nights, community beautification projects, tenant association, holiday festivals, and so forth. These programs that are funded must be open to the public and must also create sustainable and lasting impacts for those neighborhoods. Grants are matched dollar for dollar with cash in-kind donations for up to $1,000. Currently, the program is so successful we cannot accommodate all the applicants. And again, I would like to reiterate, this has been probably one of the most cost-effective programs that we use, an application process, which are very simple, it's really not difficult. But through this process, we are really able to expand the role of the regional offices in our regional areas to reach those, again, those underserved, those organizations, HOAs, civic groups who operate actually in the underserved and marginalized communities. I don't know if any of my colleagues want to add to that.
Excuse me, what's the budget now for that? This is
$25,000, $5,000 for each regional area. So with $25,000, we are really able to still just hit the debt, you know, on the demand that we're faced with here, because it's getting to be very popular, and we are really seeing some very impactful, sustainable outcomes from these relationships, those programs in communities where we've never really had much any government or community action.
So this would double, the current budget's 25,000,
Yes,
so this
so,
would double
yes.
the budget, so each
Yes, that would be
area would get
10,000
$10,000.
in each area. So if you take $1,000, up to $1,000, with 1,000 we could only fund 10.
Yeah.
But then we allow discretion to, you know, depending on how we work with those organizations, you know, we could fund less, but we could also help them augment other cost in kind or by directing them to other partnerships. So it's a pretty outcome-based program or approach to building those partnerships at the grassroots level.
Any questions on that? No. Okay, we're good on that, keeping that as a high priority, and then there was an addition of a public service internship program.
Yeah, Louisa will have Louisa address that for us. Thank you.
Like you said, there's a lot of us. Really, it's to relate what Jody said. In order to really have a public service, myself, Louisa Cardona, Mid-County. Mid-County Regional Director, but to offer an internship program and to really try to create pipelines of diverse community members. If you're offering internship programs that are not paid, only a subset of the population can apply, right? Individuals who come from affluent families who have the ability to not work for an entire summer. We don't want that to dissuade diverse populations from seeking public service. And we know that internship programs are some of the most wonderful pipelines in order to get government workers who are passionate about the work that they're doing. So this is just so that we can attract the right candidates and diverse candidates that reflect the population.
Councilmember Friedson?
Yeah, thank you. Well, first of all, I agree. I mean, paid internships are important because they allow more people to participate, and we want to ensure that. So we currently have an internship and it's currently unpaid, or this would create an internship and make it paid?
The regional offices do not currently have an internship program.
And so the thought is that this would be a $10,000 stipend that would be split among the 5, so there'd be a $2,000.
No, it would be less interns. We want to fund at least at the minimum wage of $15 an hour, so it's probably about 2 interns for all 5 regions.
Okay, so they would not be serving one regional service center. You'd have like an RSC person interning in the community engagement cluster that would move around to different regional service centers, get a different experience at different communities, and understand the full flavor. So it's another example. Listen, the Neighborhood Events Matching Funds Grants Program, I have directed community organizations to that. Pete and Ken before him have been very helpful in that. I think it's a great program. I think that's more a nice program. The internship, with 1,500 vacancies, interns are an important pipeline. We, last year we funded the cadet program, doubled that program. It was one of our ways to try to begin to chip away at local recruitment. So I'll just put it out there. If we were choosing, I would, say that the public service internship program would be a higher priority for me than the Neighborhood Events Matching Funds Grant Program, or even splitting that up and to increase it slightly. But I'm fine supporting both if that's the will of the body.
That's the will of this body. I really believe that, and candidly, I think you said it correctly, that the that one of the ways that we're getting a pipeline for getting such fine employees who work in Montgomery County is through these types of programs. And I was glad to hear you say that it wasn't going to be just a couple $1,000s per group. I mean, and whoever is going to be doing this work, if we can fund it, and hopefully we can, whoever is doing this work should know all of Montgomery County. They shouldn't just know their region. So I'm fine with it. Thank you.
Yes, I'm going to agree with Councilmember Katz, and I think also just for all of you, as Ms. Chen said, you got a score of 3 on the racial equity and social justice tool that came out, and one of the things that I'm interested in is thinking about how when groups and departments get 3s, how do we advance that and move beyond? And I see programs like this actually moving beyond what we're talking about in terms of training, raising awareness on the racial equity and social justice work, to putting a lot of things into action. I'm hopeful that when we see you next year, we hear, and when we're out and about, we hear how an internship program helps us do that and advance that. And I think having paid interns are a very important piece of that. So I'll agree with my colleague. And
just to clarify, on the paid internships, you're going with both colleagues. I am a big fan of paid internships. I'm a big fan of this paid internship. I supported the Commission on Women paid internship as well. I think my point was I actually see this as more of a racial equity, social justice program than the neighborhood events matching funds grants. That could be, but isn't necessarily. And so if we were prioritizing between these two, I was just noting that the internship program, I think, is a very important tool, and we need to have paid internships for racial equity and social justice. And so, I just wanted to note that. But given that the will of the body is to support the full neighborhood events matching funds program grants as well as a high priority, I'm fine doing both. So I just want to clarify my position here.
You're clear and you're not that rotten.
Right.
Okay.
No, you're clear. Great. I think before we leave Regional Services Center, I do want to say congratulations to Greg Wims. And I guess to note, this is probably one of the last times you'll be before this body in this current position, but we look forward to working with you in your new position, and congratulations. And thank you for all your work for the community. We did have a clarification on, actually, before I leave this section, was there anything from the community engagement folk that we missed, or any other comments? Yes, Mr. Councilman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just would like to note a special thank you not only to my colleagues, but to the amazing staff at OMB and Ada, who has led us through this process, as well as Yvette and her amazing team at the Community Engagement Cluster, because they have been an enormous amount of help. So thank you.
Great. Terrific. Yes.
And as we're saying thank yous and talking about how wonderful interns are, I wanted to acknowledge Jennifer Escobar, who's our current intern from the University of Maryland School of Social.
Great. Thank you. Wonderful. Mr. Ken, would you have any other comments? Or
I just want to say thank you so much. It's been a real joy working with this team over the last year. As with committee members here and the council, county executive is really appreciative of their leadership in their communities. We can just go down the long list of hot topic issues that I've hit, from apartment fires to youth violence to human trafficking, translations, and hate crimes. These folks have been at the forefront of each item, sometimes on the ground, oftentimes on the ground, and engaging with people directly on some of their worst days. Yep. So we're very much appreciative of what they do, and thank you for your support.
Terrific. Councilmember Friesen?
Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate all you do. We're all big fans of the regional service centers. We know how many of our residents and community-based organizations are as well. And in many ways, you're the face of county government, carrying a lot of hats with you along the way, which we appreciate. Last year when we were talking about this and we were discussing staffing, and we have over several cycles, I had suggested and continue to support a strategic plan to really think about how we're using the regional service centers. And I think in one way, we need to think about it holistically of, what is the countywide approach to this, and in other ways, I think each regional service center is different. Each community is different. There are different needs. And so I don't necessarily think that the staffing needs to be the same. I think it should be equitable, but I think the positions probably are going to serve different needs in the community, and I think that's part of the secret sauce of having a regional service center in the community, that it's uniquely positioned to understand what those community needs are and then to respond to them. So it's not a criticism, it's just a double tap, so to speak, on this issue that has been raised before. I really do think we need to do that. I also think we need to have a question of whether or not the 5 regional service centers as are currently constructed geographically, based on the growth of the county and the changes within communities, of whether or not it's an appropriate and reasonable mix, the buildings and the structures of whether or not they're serving the community. And I don't think that's going to be a 1 or 2 budget cycle question. I think it's a strategic plan that's going to be what does the next 10 or 20 years look like for regional service centers? How do we respond to changing community needs in a county that is growing and changing? And then what do we need to do to ramp up and to build and to change with a county government that doesn't always adapt as quickly as any of us would like, just given the challenges that we face of very large public organizations. It's not a budget item, but I think now is the best time to raise it and to note it, and hopefully we can continue that conversation moving forward. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Great. Thank you very much, and we appreciate you all here today, and we will continue the conversation. Thank you. Our next item will be the Public Information Office, PIO. I think I saw Mr. Hudson, yes, with us, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Chen when she gets back to her seat to kind of walk us through the packet. Mm-hmm. Okay, Ms. Chen, go ahead.
Hello, we are moving on to the Public Information Office. Would just like to, I'm not sure if it can put on the screen, the Director of MC311, Brian Roberts, is beaming in via satellite from the cherry blossoms, and we hope you are recovering well from surgery, Brian. Quick review of Public Information Office. The recommended budget for fiscal year 24 does not include any increases due to programmatic or additional additions for FTEs. There are 2 different departments, quote-unquote departments in the Public Information Office: Public Relations and Web Content and Graphic Management. Costas, Dr. Tregas will be speaking about MC311. It's all technically in the Public Information Office, but we review separately. Next question. On page 2, using the same framework as the previous 2 departments we reviewed, talking about revenue generating arms, racial equity and social justice rating, and growth areas. Also included is a screenshot from OLO's county report on how it communicates with residents to show that all the different departments, 18 departments in the county that have public information officer positions, representing 59 positions at a cost of around $8 million. Because there's no increase in programmatic requests, council staff just recommends reviewing vacancies and lapse calculations as consistent with the rest of the workforce during this budget.
Great. Wonderful. Mr. Hudson, do you have anything you want to say as opening remarks before we dig into things?
Sure. First of all, oh, I didn't turn it off. It's been a while since I've been here. First of all, thank you for having us here today to talk about our budget. for FY24. It's been a interesting 2 to 3 years for our department, and I think for the county, as we really did a lot of work retooling, a lot of work with outreach and communications to get us to the point where we ended up as a county with a highly vaccinated community, with a highly aware community as it related to COVID. There were a lot of things that happened during that time period that changed the way we operated. Probably one of the there were several big things. One, we went from going bi-weekly with our newsletter to every week. We went from doing occasional or somewhat regular press conferences to doing weekly press briefings. And the big thing I think that came out of that was a lot of coordination with outreach departments within the county. The folks that just left here, we began to work with them in a much different way in that respect. As it relates to our 311 division, they went through a lot of changes through that time period, and through all of that, we were able to maintain a really strong rating outside with the community, and we made some adjustments along the way to improve our service. But I think probably one of our more significant things, and Councilmember Friedson mentioned it earlier, is we really did focus our outreach on those communities that we had not had a relationship before. And we started doing that using things like WhatsApp, focusing a lot more on making sure documents were translated, doing events that were all in Spanish, and working with our regional services centers and others to do things that we could actually get the word out to everyone. Our challenge today and the things that we continue to work on now is to make sure that we keep that momentum going. We can't stop because now we've raised that expectation with our very diverse community, and there are ways that we're going to have to continue to do that going forward. So this budget, although there are no real significant changes in terms of enhancements or things of that nature, it does have some things from last year that allow us to start moving a little bit more in that direction. So I will end with that.
Great. Thank you very much, and thank you for the recap on the increase of work that your department's doing. One of the questions I wanted to raise, if we could discuss it, is the racial equity and social justice rating that PIO received was a rating of 0 on that, and so just wanted to see if we could unpack that a little bit more, and what's the plan for actually not getting it.
Yeah, I think a lot of our challenge, and the rating structure was fairly new. I think for us, a lot of our direct activity is focused on community outreach and our messaging that goes out. What we're going to be working on over the next year is channels. The OLO study, which did a really good job of providing us with an inventory of the different ways we're getting information out, the different things that we are communicating and how we're communicating. One of the things that we know we've got to improve is the channels through which we get information out to communities. Our job, as you all well know, is to inform the community about the activities of the government, and what we have to do to improve is to locate those channels, build those channels, and send information out through those channels. The ways that we're going today are not reaching those communities effectively. I think that had a lot to do with our lower rating. But I think next year we will not have that issue because we would have made some strides in that respect.
Great. I think particularly as the PIO office, just as we just talked about the community engagement cluster, you all are the front line of the government for folks and who they see it. So I do hope to see that improved given the current year. And I know Councilmember Friesen, did you want to talk about?
Well, I appreciate that. Obviously, it's troubling to see a score of 0 for our primary vehicle for reaching residents, a diverse community that is, now sees that our arm of government that is set up to communicate information to them is not achieving what we want to achieve and doing what we expect to have happen. So I just want to acknowledge that. I appreciate the fact that you're committed to working on that, but obviously we have a score of 0 this year. We don't expect a score of 0 next year. I think there are going to need to be some significant changes that are made in order to not do that, and I think that's important. I have a broader question about just the structure of PIO and the way the county government does this work, because I just want to make sure I understand it. So there's 60 positions, basically 60.11 positions in the PIO office that serves all of county government, and then there's 59 additional positions that are embedded within specific departments that do outreach and public affairs work. Is that correct?
Just one correction, the 60.1 FTEs in PIO include MC 311.
And how many are in 311?
Well, in terms of, there are about 40, I have to look, let me look real quick. There are 40 some in the 311 operation, and then there are 18 in the core PIO area.
Okay, I've got 46.7 full-time equivalents in 311. Is that correct? I just want to make sure we're on the same page. Okay. So, and then there are 18 or 14?
18 full-time equivalents in that area. In the core PIO.
I'm just trying to make sure I'm counting right.
13.
So
I'm sorry, 13.
13 full-time equivalents. So that means you have 13 people within the centralized office.
Yes.
So how do we differentiate between what somebody in the centralized office is doing for the enterprise as a whole and what the communications team in the Department of Transportation, who I see out, by the way, all the time.
Yep.
They're at community events, they're at Bike to Work Day, they're at even a neighborhood association. When they close their street off, I know DOT says, can we bring a table? Can we give you information? And I see the team there, and I'm happy to see them, and hopefully they're happy to see me when I go out to community events. But how do we differentiate? And I just use that as one example because I happen to see them a lot at particular community events. But how do we differentiate between those positions and those roles?
So there's a variety of roles in the Office of Public Information. So there are individuals who do graphic design and things of that nature. There are individuals that do our production work, so from the TV and cable side. So of the 13, we have 5 or so who are devoted to graphic design type work, and that goes from the web. That's web work, that's graphic design work, and other visual aid activities. There are about 4 people who are working on the production side, and then there are 2 people who are administrative currently in the budget, an SEAA and a program manager, and then there are 3 managers and myself, and then there are 6 PIOs out there. There are 6 PIOs budgeted. Currently, we have 4 PIOs who we are finalizing the recruiting for, and also 1 manager that we are about to replace.
Okay, so I'm just
I know that math isn't going to add up to 13 when you do that.
It doesn't.
Okay.
Okay, so I mean we got to sort this out.
Yeah.
Because I have some concerns here about we have a racial equity, social justice score of 0, so we have a lot of work to do. We have, I think, some questions as to how we have set this up. Is it a centralized department or is it completely decentralized? We're neither decentralized with a really lean central department. We're kind of a little bit of both, at least from my perspective. We've got 59 folks totaling $8 million, according to Ms. Chen and council staff in the various departments embedded. And then we have 13 to 18, depending on at what point we're answering, people within your department outside of MC311, which I do view as a separate, I think we should treat those differently, at least personally. One is about response to residents on constituent issues and service requests and residents in crisis, and the other is about communicating broadly, PR, website, et cetera. So, okay, so you currently have 4 vacancies of PIOs of the 6. There's 6 PIOs and 4, so you have 2 people doing the PIO work right now?
That is correct.
And 4 vacancies?
Yes.
Where are you in the process of hiring those 4?
We're very deep in the process. We've finished our interview process. We've made some offers, and we're waiting to finalize the salary agreement part with them.
How long have those 4 vacancies been open?
About 8 months.
All of them have been open 8 months, or they're varying degrees?
They're just varying degrees, but in total around 8 months. Since the beginning of this fiscal year.
Since the beginning of this fiscal year. So people left.
We had one individual. We had a couple of people who were promoted or left our department, and we're filling a couple of those positions. And we had an individual who we hired who also left. And we have about 4 of them left. So it's been close to 8 months since those positions have been available, if you kind of add them all together.
Do we have a copy of an org chart? Because you have 3 managers plus 1 director in a department of 13 people. How many people report to the managers?
Right now, we have all the managers aren't in place currently. So right now, the reporting structure is that there are 2 people who report to 1 person who reports to one of the managers, and the rest of those report directly to me for now. Once we have everyone in place.
So you have managers who manage nobody?
We have managers.
Just to be clear, I mean, if you have 3 managers and 1 director, you have 1 manager who manages 1 person.
We have,
and then you have remaining managers who manage nobody because everybody else reports directly to you.
There are 3 management positions, but there are currently 2 that are in place. So there are 2 managers who are currently in place. There's 1 management opening.
Could you explain the roles of the 3 managers?
Sure. 1 manager is our manager of media relations and strategic partnerships. That individual does a lot of media relations and things of that nature. Working with him is one of our PIOs, and there is another one who will be assigned to him when the positions are filled. There is another manager who handles our newsletter and currently is managing the departments because we don't have the PIOs to support them. So he's working directly with all the departments, fulfilling their needs in terms of press releases, event management, and things that go in the newsletter.
So just to ask a follow-up on that. So the 59 positions and the $8 million embedded in the various departments, they don't do their own press releases. They have you do the press releases for
these
them?
These are for all press releases do come through our office. All press releases
So are you
come.
proofreading them, or are you copy editing them, or are you writing
We're
them?
doing a combination of copy editing, which making sure that all releases go out approved and reviewed from one central place before they go out. In addition to that, but most of that is the support of those departments that don't have PIOs to do their press releases, event announcements, graphic design, event management, and media relations.
I'll just say, I have real concerns about the structure of the department. We have a manager who manages one person. We have other managers who manage nobody. Sounds like they're managing work, not people, which is an odd structure from a from an organizational.
That is because
standpoint.
we're putting those are positions. When those positions are filled, those individuals will have their staff back.
But even when you're fully staffed, you're going to have. I mean, you have a bunch of people who report directly to you, and then managers who at most could have 1 or 2 people reporting to them. You're only hiring 4 PIOs.
Yes,
when the PIOs are in place, you have 2 managers who are vacant. So at most, the 2 managers could manage 2 people.
No, we also again we have the media relations side of our house, as well as the video and as well as the web and graphic design side of the house. When we have we will restructure and put people under all those individuals once we have our full management structure in place.
Please. Because I think we need to make some significant changes here.
So, Mr. Hudson, thank you for describing that. Perhaps I'm sure you do have an organizational chart, and that you could send the committee, and also where you see these new positions coming. And I also just want to note that in your budget there was a reduction of a vacant position. So we are looking at a reduction. So I think to have this conversation further, it would be helpful to have you take more time and provide us with more information on the organization. And how you see it, and what the duties are, and how it's split. And I also think some more clarification on the 59 positions that are embedded, and what they are doing would be helpful for us.
Sure.
Councilmember Katz, did you have a follow-up?
I do. Thank you. Thank you, Barry, for being here. And in many cases, the public looks at public information from the county as a county, a single county. But as you know and we know, there are various departments that have their own information that they filter it through you or whatever. How much of a coordination do you do with the other departments and with the county council side, etc.?
There's quite a bit of coordination. We actually meet with all the PIOs and some outreach people biweekly. So there's a biweekly meeting that we do to coordinate what's going on in departments, what they're about to release, and also work on initiatives together that will, put information out to the public. Those bi-weekly meetings allow us to find out what departments are planning to do, but they also allow us to continue to look at, is there an event that we can do that will promote that particular piece as well. The other coordination that takes place is the coordination of information going out. So if, as I mentioned earlier, press releases, announcements, those things going out the door all come through the one source, so that one place, so that we can make sure that we have consistent messaging, so that we can make sure that all the pieces that we have in terms of our style and guide are there. In terms of things with the council, we work pretty regularly with Sonia and her team on a lot of events and a lot of activities. There's a lot of coordination also that takes place because my staff also has the resources for graphic design, so graphic design comes through us. In addition to that, they are working on and provide video support, as well as editing for events and event setup, podiums, things of that nature. All that comes through my team. So the support that we provide goes beyond the 59 rely on us, or the folks who do that work rely on us to provide a lot of the depth of support that they might need, because they don't have those resources to produce that type of activity.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Friedson.
Yeah, appreciate it. So is there a restructuring plan and a timeline for this? You say when you bring these forward, because generally it would be pretty unorthodox to have this number of vacancies in the exact same position and bring them all on board at once. Normally, I would think that if you had 4 vacancies in virtually identical positions, that you would bring them on in a staggered way. 1, to get more competitive recruitment of candidates, and 2, just because it being realistic of how many people you could train and onboard in an organization at once when you have, one person they're reporting to. I don't know how one person can provide the attention to 4 people who are going to report to them and onboard them in an effective way. I just don't think it's a situation that's set up for success. So is there a restructuring plan and a timeline that this is part of that we're just not aware of?
Yeah, I mean, yes. The short answer is yes. There is I wouldn't call it a restructuring plan. It'll just be, it's the way the department will be set up. And the department will be set up with a director, 3 managers that will have staff reporting to them, a combination of PIO, the web and graphic design, as well as the production side of our house. So we basically have 3 types of people or types of work that happen on our side of the house, the other side obviously being MC301, and we'll have our staff reporting in under that structure.
So Ms. Chen, why don't you go ahead?
Yes, just to give context, the GEO committee, the last 2 cycles, also during COVID, this is why the OLO report was commissioned, as well as the customer service initiative that came out of the CEX. The ideal going forward is actually looking back. The original reason for the PIO positions in the 18 departments, 59 positions, was for FOIA, Montgomery, Maryland, PIA, and press releases. And since then, we have shifted to video content, graphic, web design, and more reporting and social media. So as part of that initiative, multi-year, where this is, Dr. Tragus will also speak to this in MC301, we're probably at year 3 right now. First with the inventory of all the communication channels done by OLO, and then moving forward with this committee on how to restructure communication among residents.
Yeah, there's a director, there's 3 managers. There's 3 different areas that the 3 managers manage: graphic design, web design, production, and PIO. Mm-hmm. If there are 4 managers and director, and there's 13 people, that means that the 3 managers manage 9 people, and that means that several of the managers manage fewer than 3 people.
That could be the case.
Because it is the case, because there's more than 3 PIOs. Yes. There's 4 vacancies, there's 6 PIOs. So that means that probably some of the managers manage 1 person, or no people at all.
No, no one would have just 1. It's not that will not be the structure.
Well, I don't want to belabor this. If we're not going to take a position now on these, and we're going to wait to see the organizational structure, I will wait to see that. I will say I think that we should be looking at this department and figuring out how to move forward. I think we need a plan for racial equity and social justice of how you're going to go from 0 above that, and I am uncomfortable personally fully funding and staffing positions until we're comfortable with what the structure of the office looks like and what the plan is for addressing the Res-J analysis, and I would suggest holding off on bringing on new people until you have a new structure in place, until there's a plan for racial equity, social justice, and a way to implement it to make sure that the people that you're bringing on are going to help fulfill that plan. It just seems a little backwards to me that we are going to bring people on and then do the plan, as opposed to doing the plan and then hire to fulfill the plan or determine what is the best way to move forward. So I just wanted to put that forward. I would suggest pumping the brakes here a little bit, But and I do want to look at the organizational structure because I am concerned with the idea that we could have, we have managers managing very few people, and how that delineation of responsibility, and then how the departments and the central PIO office interface, and how we delineate those responsibilities as well.
I just wanted to, and I appreciate your comments. I just want to indicate that we have the 3 management people in place. We'll have the 3 management people in place. The structure is there. There will be a director, 3 managers, and each of those managers will have staff. It will not be one under any individual. They'll manage the work of those different individuals. But it's also important to realize that one of the reasons why we do have an additional couple people who were added is because of the support needed for departments who need additional support. There was requests directly from some departments a year ago to have their own PIO in there, but we decided that it would be best to centralize that work within our office. So with that in mind, we are building that, rebuilding, to be quite frank with you, the support that was once there for departments prior to the pandemic. This is not a new size. This is not a huge change in the number of people. When I first came a few years ago, there was those numbers were almost about the same as they are now in terms of the number of PIOs, and the structure of the office was that the PIOs supported the departments throughout the government. What has slightly changed is that there are a few departments who have built comms units within them. That's probably the biggest change. Yeah. But beyond that, our office still remains an important cog. Now, what has also changed is the frequency, the robustness, and the timeliness of delivering communications that has grown in the last 4 years. It has become, the speed to communicate has changed immensely in the last 4 years. So some of these changes that we're making are going to allow us to make the appropriate adjustments to be quicker as a county, but also enable us to dive into areas that we might not have had the same wherewithal to do prior to. So there is a structure. There is going to be a way for you to see this, the way the office will function. And bringing on 3 or 4 people at once is not a challenge. We do it in 3-on-1 all the time, where we bring in classes of people that allows you to train individuals the same way and make sure that everyone has the same information. And so there is going to be...
I'll just note, a call center, bringing on customer service representatives at a call center at once is very different than bringing on 4 people into a 13-person organization. I don't want to get into a back and forth or an argument with you. I just think we're comparing apples to oranges, and I just don't think it's, I do think we need to separate out 311 and the PIO. These are very different roles and functions. I think they should be treated differently. I made my point. I think you should hold off. Personally, I think there's work that needs to be done. I appreciate council staff's recommendation of looking at vacancies for savings. I think we ought to do that. But if we want to hold off and see the organizational structure and better understand that before we make any final decisions, I respect and appreciate that, and appreciate your leadership here, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hudson. So I think giving us the organizational chart and how you see the department running would be very beneficial. I understand and hear my colleagues' frustration. You all said you're pretty far along in the hiring, and this is also about people's lives and jobs and other things. So personally, I would leave that to your discretion of where your department is right now. But I do think it is important to know where we're going.
Sure.
And that we have a plan. for
Sure.
where we go. And it sounds like you do, and it would be helpful to communicate that to us in terms of the racial equity and social justice targets. And as you mentioned before, it seems that you have a number of metrics that you're looking at in your department. Coming back and talking to us about those, and thinking about how quickly we're getting out there now. We're doing that a lot more, but having things that we can also measure and look at, I think would be helpful moving forward.
Sure.
So I appreciate your time this morning, and we look forward to the additional materials as we continue to work through our budget.
All right.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. I think, are we kind of switching to 311?
Yeah.
It's all right.
Good morning. I'm Costas Torregas, Council IT Advisor, and I'll be walking you through the packet number 3, operating budget for MC311. As you have already understood, MC311 is a real set aside from the overall PIO budget. It could be located in any department of the county government, but the county executive chose to put it inside the PIO. The budget that you're looking at is about $5 million for 939, 911, and it's almost 80% or so of the overall PIO budget of $7 million. So it's the tail that wags the dog sometimes in terms of budget, and that's why we want to break it apart and let you take a look inside the center itself. We have with us over and above Barry Hudson, who's the PIO and who's responsible for this budget as well. We have Brian Roberts on Zoom, who's the manager of the center itself. Gail Roper and Allison Dollar have joined us from TEBS. They're here because 311 really rolls on a technology platform, and it's significant, and this is why you have asked me to review it rather than Ms. Chen. And of course, I have Eva Acevedo here, who's always very responsive with data. I want to make 2 or 3 quick remarks and then turn it over to you for questions to my colleagues in the executive branch. And of course, a big thank you to Carolyn Chen, or the team here that approaches PIO and 311 in a very comprehensive way. First of all, it's the same expenses budget, same services budget. There is a shift from the cable budget to PIO, and that is happy news. In other words, we're seeing an increase, but it's happy news because the GEO Committee has expressed for years now concern about having mission-critical functions being hidden inside the cable plan. So this is one time that the executive branch has quickly understood your imperative direction and has shifted that position. So there is no increase requested in this budget. Secondly, as I've laid out on my packet, there are some vacancies that are available, and if you look at page 2 of the budget, these are direct copies from an OMB provided report. Thank you, OMB, for the detail. And you'll see that there's one position inside MC3, and these are just the MC311 positions. There's an equivalent report for the full PIO office. You'll see that the 4th column has the number of days the position has been vacant. So 3 positions are within a year. The traditional, someone retired, someone left, someone we're looking to replace positions. But there is one position, this MC311 Program Manager 2, that has been vacant for almost 3 years. And I have to raise the question, if it's 3 years, are we looking for someone? Is there something structurally wrong? That would, to me at least, indicate something important. That's number 1. Number 2, should I continue or should I pause? Number 2 is on page 3 of my memo. I asked a question to OMB and to the PIO office, MC311, that the number of calls per day has declined by some 25%. and yet the number of CSRs, customer service representatives, has remained the same. And I asked for some discussion on that. The discussion that follows is the answer that I received, but I fear that it did not really answer the question I raised, which is how come there's such a significant shift downward? And it's not a surprise. It's been going down for some time now. Perhaps our residents are learning to use other tools of requesting agenda items from the council, for example, and therefore this downward shift in number of calls has to be somehow responded in terms of the number of CSR positions available. The last thing I would point out is on page 7, you'll see a graph of the service level agreement performance by the departments. So roughly 60 to 70% of the calls that come in are general purpose calls. Tell me this, tell me that. But there is a significant percentage that this 311 operator takes down the information and gives it to a department. What happens after the department receives it? This chart tells you that many of our departments have like 100% service level agreement completion rate. They've set a number for themselves. They've agreed with the executive that that is the number to shoot for. And although the ones that you see way up there, including 100%ers, are departments that have actually done very well in actually taking up the MC311 received call and executing on it and then closing the ticket. There are some departments that have done so well, that have not done so well. And again, we might ask the question, why have they not done so well? Is perhaps the service level agreement level too disciplined? Maybe it should be relaxed, or is it that they are attaching a lesser priority to calls that come from MC311 for satisfaction? So those are the three things that I suggest you take a look at from the financial viewpoint. I'm suggesting and recommending the approval of the executive's budget as performed. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Can I pick up on that last point on when calls get directed then to a department? Are they patched through right then? Are people given a number to then call the department?
If you'd agree, I would ask my friend, Mr. Roberts, to address that question.
Mm-hmm.
Brian, would you feel comfortable addressing that question? Hang on 1 second. Yes.
Do you need me to repeat it, Mr.?
I just want to make sure you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. It depends on the question. So close to 70% of the calls we get are general information questions that we can answer directly from our database and don't have to go back to the department. About the balance of the calls, a service request is sent back to the department, and there's generally an SLA, service level agreement, attached to it, where they have to get back to the customer within 24 to 72 hours. But in practice, generally, customers are responded to more quickly than that from the department, but it depends on the issue, it depends on the department. There are some issues in housing where a regulation violation may take years to to resolve. If you ask for stump removal, I think the wait time is something like 5 or 6 years. But if you call about an insurance issue and you're in the doctor's office, we patch you right through. If it's a crisis, if it's a 911 call, that happens immediately. So it depends on the situation.
Looking at the bar chart, it looks like, if I'm imagining REC is rec. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And just curious, do we know the type of calls or questions that, because they're under 50%, and I'm just going to the point before about saying if we're receiving fewer calls to 311, and you were calling into question, do we need as many operators, and I'm just wondering, before we start to question the number of operators, because that makes me actually a little nervous with 311, because I think you do get quite a few calls. Is it to do a deeper dive and see, is there more support that can be given for these calls that are coming through for rec that seem to not be responded to as quickly as other areas? Does that make sense?
Yes, Brian, excuse me. Let me just address one thing. I did not suggest reducing.
Right.
I was just wondering
Right.
what is going on and how are we using new technology, ChatGPT and other technologies, to absorb the requests that we have. But on the question for rec, I do not have the detail for rec, but in general, it might be useful for the GO committee after the budget is over to dive in a little bit into terms of three things, and I've suggested that in prior packets. Who sets the SLA, and is it reasonable to a resident? You know, it should. If I told you it should take 7 days before I get a response back about garbage pickup, you'd say no, that's not right. So it's not 7 days, I can assure you. But there may be some value to the GO committee reviewing the SLAs themselves. Then secondly, reviewing the actual scoring of the departments. Mm-hmm. And again, it's a little bit like the racial equity scores. Who will administer kind of some reward mechanism for doing well, or some kind of negative reward mechanism for not doing well on these, because these are our residents that are waiting for the call. So the rec department could be an early start for that. Brian, please answer the question as you can.
What I was going to say is that we get very few calls about the recreation department. Most of the calls to the recreation department go to directly to the department. So some of what you're seeing is one or two late, one or two misses is going to make up a high number. Yeah. Right? I just learned to speak English. I hope you understood what I was trying to say.
No, I get it. We have a data problem here. It looks like the sample size is too small to give us accurate data on this. That's super helpful.
As bad as it looks now, 6 departments generate on most of our calls: transportation, permitting services, housing, health and human services, finance, and that's 6. I feel like I'm missing somebody. And then there's a 7th OHR, which is not as large as the top 6, but is still a sizable amount of our volume. So that's where I think the SLAs are the most relevant.
Great, thank you. Yes, I think we have those data on page 8. Appreciate it. Councilmember Katz.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. First off, I do think that we should do a deeper dive after the budget. I think that's the best idea that we have at this moment. And I also understand that there's various volumes during, depending on the time of day and depending on the what is generated. And you're saying about the mail being slow. We have that scenario when tax bills, etc. So I think we need to have in that deeper dive, when we get into it, we need to have a discussion on how fast we're answering the calls. Even though we're answering them faster, are we still at a peak time? Are we answering it as quickly as we used to, or how are we doing on that? I think that would be helpful. And I've said this before, for the stump removal, for somebody to be told, oh, you're going to get to you in 5 years, that's called absolute anger. I mean, we should say we're not in that business, or we should fund enough. I don't know how many people have been told that it's been 5 years to get a stump removal, but either we should find out that number and fund it so that somebody is not told. I mean, if you told somebody 1 year that's too long, 5 years is ridiculous. So anyhow, that's another issue we need to deal with.
We'll come
Thank
back
you,
to
Madam
stump
Chair.
removal. Yeah, go ahead, Councilmember Fritzen.
Appreciate it. Well, first of all, things at 301 were not good for a period of time, really not good at times, and things have gotten better. So I want to acknowledge that and appreciate that. We sat at this previous committee, and these conversations were not fun for anybody, for us or for you, and things have gotten better. So thank you for the improvements that have been made, first of all. Second of all, I agree on the stump removal, but it raises actually the Dr. Torrega's point more broadly, which is in any organization, to me, the most concerning aspect isn't when you set an aggressive standard and you don't reach it. It's when the standard that you have set is unacceptable. When succeeding is failing, you're failing. And the challenge that we get when we do some of these issues is our metric and our standard for what is a satisfactory time or what is a satisfactory response, like 5 years for a stump. I think it might be 3 years, but actually in reality is 4 to 5 years in what we actually do. So we're not even meeting the unrealistic and anger invoking expectation. But the challenge is there's a disconnect oftentimes with that. And that's what I think we need to work on and figure out, what is the service level that we expect? What is the service level that residents expect? And are we doing what we need to do in order to reach it? And if we're not, let's figure it out. But the challenge that I find that we often get is we will look in the mirror and say we're doing a great job, and residents will say you're not doing a good job, and there's a disconnect. And that's where the anger comes from, where we don't know why you're yelling at us and you're upset, and it's not fair to the customer service representative who has to get berated by an upset and angry resident. It's on us because we have set up a system that doesn't serve the needs of residents for what they would expect. And that has everything to do with service levels, and a lot of that has to do with budget priorities and funding and staffing levels and technology and all the other things that we're talking about here. So I just want to acknowledge that because those 2 points are actually directly related in a certain way. I did want to speak to in the packet. I know there was a response to it. I'm not sure I totally understood it, so I was hoping you could explain it. The average speed to answer January to March, that was raised as a concern on page 5. The response was that was a data problem and we fixed it. I was just wondering, could you explain that? I wasn't clear what that meant. And so if you could just explain, what was the data problem, what was fixed, and where are we now? It just seems like we got a new chart. You said that was a wrong chart, and we sent you a new one. I just thought we should. It's in the packet. It's not really well explained, from my perspective, and so I just think we should flesh that out.
The data problem was embarrassingly. I wrote 21 and 16 instead of, I put the decimal in the wrong place basically. There's minutes instead of seconds. It should have been seconds. It's 21 seconds and 16 seconds in February and March for the average speed of answer. So I mean, it's that simple.
Got it. Okay, it was just an input human error. Okay, no problem. For future, I think it would be helpful if we actually wrote that in the packet because this is what the public sees, and this is what lasts for perpetuity when we go back and when staff goes back and looks at where we are. I just think it's important that we document that. Totally understandable. I'm not here to beat up a human error on an input, no big deal. But could you explain the January minute 8 is much higher? Is that normal in January because of start of the year, end of the year things? Is that abnormal? Was there an issue that happened? Could you just explain that?
It was an issue that happened. So normally delinquency notices for tax bills go out, property tax bills go out in late December. This year there was a confluence of factors that made bills go out later than normal. Some bills go out later than normal, And then on the customer's end, customers think that when they send their tax bill in, it's immediately paid. But when it goes to the bank then sends the money to the county. That's additional time, and we don't know whether it was the banks taking their time or the postal service taking their time, but thousands of residents were tagged with late bills for folks who actually paid their bills on time. And so we got probably 1,000 calls in 2 days about that issue on January 30th and January 31st. It's very unusual. Usually those calls are spread out. Usually there aren't as many. So that one day, our average speed to answer was over 16 minutes. So that's unacceptable in any context to anyone, but it is not something that happens often. We hadn't had any delays like that since the worst days of the pandemic. So it was just an anomaly. Once we understood what was happening, we worked with the Department of Finance to figure out how to develop appropriate messages, and then they took measures to, take away the delinquency status of many of these customers. And in 2 days,
appreciate that. So a comment and then a follow-up question. So the comment is, we should footnote that, if there are abnormal things that are happening, we're putting out charts. I think it's important to footnote it, mostly to protect you, your team did not do something wrong on those 2 days. There was an abnormal situation and it caused an abnormal data input, and it doesn't look great on a chart, and so it should be explained. And it should be in the same place. So that's my comment, and that helps us so that council staff doesn't raise the issue, and then we prepare to ask you tough questions. If there's a perfectly good explanation for this, let's just get it out there proactively, and I think that will save everybody some trouble. So that's the comment. The question is, in a situation like that, is 311 leadership and department leadership communicating? If finance is sending out notices, they're going to generate thousands of 311 requests and a bunch of angry, pissed off residents or confused and concerned residents, or whatever the case may be. Are you getting a heads up in advance? I can't imagine, as smart as the people are who work in county government, we don't know when we send a notice out of what the likely response is going to be. I mean, we got really smart people who work for the county, but do we have anything set up where you're given a heads up and you can make sure that you're staffed up extra for those few days, because we know you're going to get inundated, or even we detail a few people, a few extra people, and we train them up on that one or two issues that we know are going to flood the system, so to speak, and we have a situation in place. Does that exist, or does that not happen?
The part about getting a heads up and working with the department, yes, that happens, absolutely. In this particular case, the complaints came all at once rather than spread out. That was what was different. And in terms of staffing up quickly on a particular issue, we don't really have the ability to do that, because we didn't just get 1,000 finance calls, tax calls. We got 3,000 other calls, those in that 2-day period, and everybody who answers the phone has to be able to answer all of those questions. So I don't know if you're aware of this, but we cover 3,000 different topics in knowledge-based articles that, and in New York, the largest 311 operation in the country, they handle 500. In DC, they handle 200. So it's impossible for us to put someone in a position quickly to answer calls. The shortest we've been able to do it is about 1 month. And we're working on ways to make it faster, but when you have to answer questions in as broad a number of categories as deeply as we do, it's not possible.
As a follow-up, I mean, I do think there should be a deeper dive into this issue because there are ways to address that. You know, one would be, we know this notice is going to flood the system, and so we can set up a separate number and have people in finance for those 2 days deal with those specific questions so they don't dominate the 311 system with residents who are trying to get other services who therefore would be put on hold for their services. And it would seem to me sometimes there are emergencies that come up that we can't foresee. Sometimes we create the emergency that we can foresee. I would say probably most times, and this notice is an example of that, and we should have a process in place for those situations. And I talk a lot about we can only control what we can control, and we have to over-communicate what we can't control. In this case, we could do both. We can control, and we can over-communicate, and we can put people in positions, and it would be perfectly reasonable from my perspective to pull people in finance who intimately understand this issue and have them on the phones for 3 days to answer resident concerns and make sure everybody understands that ahead of time and manage work schedules and project timelines so that everyone understands this is when the notice is coming out, this is when we expect to get inundated. We're going to set up a special hotline that's going to be clearly understood, and if it comes into 311, they can immediately divert. You can even say press 9 if this is a call about your tax notice, you know, for instance. So I'll just note that. Okay, 2 other comments. One, we have a recommendation from staff on the vacancy. There's a vacancy that's been about 3 years old, 265 days. I just wanted to get, 824 days. There's 4 total vacancies. So I just want to understand that. I think one of the vacancies that's been open for 96 days, it seems that it's not funded. So I just want to get a sense, you know, I want to confirm the recommendation that we have, or the suggestion to consider, or that we could consider, is eliminating the vacancy that's been open for 824 days. And then the other question would be the unfunded vacancy. Is the plan to continue to unfund that, or how is that, how is that reflected in the budget?
A couple of things. One, the position that has been open for 800 some days is a position that for 2 years had been frozen by OMB, so we could not fill it. In the last year, it was open because there was a large backlog in recruiting in OHR. They had 600-700 positions open, so they asked every department to prioritize their positions, and this position ended up in the 3rd tier, so we couldn't address it until recently, and so now we're in the process of getting that position filled. But for the past 3 years, we have not been able to fill it. It has not been because we didn't want to.
So the council president has suggested that we ask for non-recommended cuts. It sounds like you've already non-recommended this position to OHR and to OMB, not necessarily to the council, but I would agree with the council staff recommendation that we should consider eliminating this, and if colleagues agree, could we get?
We were prohibited from filling it.
Well, you were prohibited from filling it because you included it on the 3rd.
This was a rule we were asked to comply with.
Right.
Trying to fill the position.
There was he's referring to the hiring freeze that was in place, and there was 2 years where we weren't able to fill the position. It remained, but we did not fill it. And then when OMB was going through the process of catching up on backlog, we had to make a we had to make a choice in terms of priority. So correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, we prioritize CSRs, frontliners, in the hiring process and put this one back a little bit. And now we're ready to hire for that position. So that's what it was.
Can I ask, who was doing this work during these 864 days, or whatever it was? How was this work being done?
We have a training and quality assurance manager who is managing the training process, handling our customer surveys and some of our communications, in addition to quality assurance. And so a large amount of work was heaped on one person. And the situation has been this way for many years, and we've needed to fill this position, but we've not been able to get it done until hopefully in the next month or so.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, there's two positions. One is this 824 day, which is more than that now, but when this was calculated, 824 day position. The other one is the program manager P2. The P3 is the one that's been open for 824 days plus. P2 is unfunded. So can I just get clarity on that? That was not funded in last year's budget, but the PIN remained, the FTE remained. Is it funded in this budget, or is it continued to be unfunded but the position remains?
My understanding is the agreement with OMB is not to fund it. This was the agreement we made in order to cut our budget by 2% for FY24.
Right, and we have Ms.
I
Acevedo.
can add something to
Yeah,
that.
go ahead.
Ava Acevedo from OMB. So that position, that program manager to the 96 days that's unfunded, that's the administrative manager position that actually in PIO's packet, that's the reduction of a vacant position no longer needed. So the major administrative functions of that position are going to shift to OMB shared services. So it's that 130.
So that's shared between PIO and 311.
Yes.
And that's unfunded.
It's the recommendation is to have that reduction in FY24. Yes, eliminate the position.
Okay. So and then you've just split it between PIO and 311. That's why that.
It serves both sides of the department. The position served both sides of the department.
And it already exists in PIO.
It already exists, but we work with OMB to eliminate that position going into 24.
You're eliminating the position, or you're unfunding that position? I think you're unfunding it, but you're not.
Eliminating.
We're eliminating because we're going to go to shared services, and that will be supported through OMB shared services.
So OMB is going to handle these administrative functions. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So then the other position, I just want to understand this. The other position, it was frozen, and so you couldn't hire for it. Then the freeze was lifted, but then you were asked, then it was held by OMB, basically to use LAPS to, move forward with funding things that without the council's role in it, which is how LAPS is generally used to make the numbers work, which I understand, not an easy thing to do, but not something that we love either, because we have no role in that and carrying out our budgetary oversight authority. And then it was lifted, but then you were asked to tier your priorities of your positions, and you put this one in a third tier of recruitment based on the time it would take to recruit people?
No,
and how you're prepared to, I just want to understand. Yeah, sorry, explain that again, if you could.
We wanted to prioritize hiring customer service representatives. So we put those folks first. I mean, it's a little bit like Sophie's Choice, but we prioritize the CSRs to make sure that we have as much coverage as possible on the phone.
Yeah, I agree with that decision. I'm glad you made that decision. Like I said, there's improvements that have been made, and this has been vacant for over 800 plus days. I will also say that we have, on the PIO side, I talked about it before, you have managers who are managing one person and two people. The numbers don't even add up. I don't want to go through that again, but they don't equal 13. We have been asked to come up with non-recommended cuts based on positions that have been open more than 2 years. This seems to satisfy that. If it was a frontline 311 customer service representative that was taking calls, I would say we shouldn't touch it, but it's not. And so I, again, think, we're going to have to make some tough choices. We can't just say yes to everything. There's a 10% property tax that's being proposed. We have $145 million structural deficit that we are creating just by virtue of carrying out this budget. If we make no changes, something's got to give here. So I'll yield back to colleagues, and I have one final question on technology for moving forward. But on this issue, I personally think that we should take the suggestion as either unfunding or eliminating this position that's been open for more than 824 days.
Okay. Mr. Roberts, can I ask a clarifying question? How long have you been now advertising or searching actively to fill this position?
We haven't. We've just started a process internally.
Okay.
So we've put a position description into the system, and we hope to post it soon.
Okay. So since HR asked you to prioritize, you're just now getting to putting out information on this. Okay. Councilmember Cass, do you have any question? All right. I think we will leave that as it is. Council President did send a memo over, so I think all departments are being asked to look at their vacancies. So we'll see what we get back on that. I believe it's April 28th on that. You got a technology question?
Yeah. So, first of all, appreciate that. If you could reflect that I suggested to eliminate it in the packet, I would appreciate that for council staff, but appreciate colleagues and appreciate the department and the perspective. So my question is on the development of an app. We have moved from like the dark ages of this system to having a chat bot, which is like when you went into Microsoft Word or even Word Perfect, and you had Clippy or that, and we have, this was technology that was utilized, to be perfectly honest with you, with companies that are no longer in existence anymore, so it's not new technology. And now the question is, one, where are we on the chat box and chat functions to relieve some of the pressure on customer service representatives who have too broad of a span to understand and know and need some pressure taken off of them. And then two, about an app. So Prince George's County has an app. Jurisdictions all over the country have apps that help residents to navigate through a lot of the general questions, the 68+% of questions that we end up getting. Of course, not all of them could be answered through a chatbot or through an app. We need people who are specialized who can help navigate human challenges with human beings. But we can take a lot of their load off the plate. And so the question is, where are we on that? How is that looking? Are we moving towards an app? What's the timeline on that?
So I would start by saying that part of our strategic priority, TEP's strategic priority, is to improve service to the public through digital transformation. That does just not happen within TEPS. It requires a collaboration, of course, with the departments. We are currently working towards implementing ChatGPT in a directed manner with the 311 call center. We are working to actually put in this disruptor that is being used in, you know, biomedical fields, engineering fields. The ChatGPT technology really is the next generation of artificial intelligence. So we have this opportunity, working in collaboration with the Microsoft group to implement that. We're studying right now the implementation strategy for that. But I have to say that part of what our philosophy, TEB's philosophy, is around technology is that you have to understand the business process. So I have a change management team within my organization that is actually looking to answer some of the questions that you asked today around how these calls come in, what are the frequently asked questions, does the call go straight through to, say, HHS, or does it stay with a call taker? And I think the technology is, as I mentioned, a collaborative effort. These KBAs have to be accurate. So when I talk about directive intelligence, we're pointing that artificial intelligence at these KBAs. We don't want ChatGPT going out to the internet answering these questions. We want it pointing to these KBAs. So, you know, the old adage about garbage in, garbage out. We want to make sure that that side of the work is done, that those KBAs are accurate, so that we could get good information to residents calling in. So we're in the early stages, meeting with Microsoft, probably now weekly, on the implementation of ChatGPT and the XAML chatbot technology. It's I would say that ChatGPT is being used internationally. Just came from a trip to Taiwan where it's being used heavily in organizations that are using it for transportation, for resident services, for pedestrian crossways with sensors. So it takes a culture of innovation to make these things happen. They can't happen from the IT organization pushing technology on the departments. It has to be a situation where we're working together. And I think part of it, and probably the most challenging aspect of it, is making certain that the work is being done on the departmental side. They know their business, they're the subject matter experts, and that the technology is applied after we understand what the problem is. So we're not applying technology for the sake of it. So I would say, in terms of timeline, Councilman Friedson, I would say in the next 4 months we should have an implementation of the ChatGPT, if not sooner. It's going fairly well. And then we also have the challenge of replacing a 17-year-old 311 system. So the one thing that I said coming into the organization is that our youngest system, I believe, is 12 years old, which is pretty old for technology. So we had to strategize and come up with strategic ways to replace what needed to be replaced, and then we got blindsided by COVID and had to build a registration and a vaccination system with new technology during COVID. So we're on a trajectory to have that completed. We're also doing the business process reengineering to replace the 311 system, which is the content management system, and how those calls flow through the departments. So it's connected and interfaced with our phone system, our telephony system. So we're looking now to find out what needs to be done in time for it to be budgeted during the next budget cycle. It was not funded this time. The web system was funded this time. We weren't far enough along in our analysis to even ask for funding for the 311 call system, but we're working on that as we speak.
So the ChatGPT, artificial intelligence, you think is going to be available like after Labor Day? 4 months from now would be September? So a resident is going to be able to take advantage of that starting in September?
We already had it in place. We had it in place with the first generation of artificial intelligence. What we're doing now is upgrading it to GPT, which is the next generation, supposedly smarter. We're upgrading it now to the second generation of artificial intelligence.
Yeah, Councilmember Katz has mentioned that he thinks I have artificial intelligence, but I think he means something entirely different than what the smartness of this.
I don't know if I use the word intelligence.
Yeah, exactly. I know artificial you used. Okay, so our current system interfaces fine with that?
Yes.
And then the question is, can somebody on their mobile, like, how about like an app-based? Increasingly now, the challenge that we have is to navigate a website on your mobile device is extremely problematic.
That will come with the modernization of the website. That we have those formats available for mobile devices. I would say that the website, if I'm not mistaken, Allison, is a 12, 18-month project, but I hope to have some apps built prior to that. But right now, the infrastructure has to be modernized in order for us to make that happen. So I would say 12 months, you'll see all of these things. We won't be having this kind of conversation.
Well, I would love to be here at budget next year and to have this be ready to go. I have been let down before, but I have a lot of faith in you and your background, and so I am very cautiously optimistic, I will say, but look forward to that. I think it's crucial, and it doesn't matter how smart the artificial intelligence is, so to speak, if it's not a user-friendly, easy to navigate system, which it really isn't currently. As much as we would like, it's not pull up your handheld device, have a MoCo 311 app or whatever the case may be, and be able to ask your question very easily. It doesn't matter how smart it is. So I think you know that, we know that, but it's much harder to execute that. But appreciate the work that you're doing.
You're very welcome.
Great, thank you. My final question is, I know the answer, but I want to clarify. The racial equity and social justice score is the main one also that we talked about before for PIO. There's not a separate one for 311. Ms. Chen, yeah.
That is correct.
Just, we actually have a slide to queue up.
Oh, okay.
So I just wanted to make sure. Yeah, there we
go.
Go ahead.
Great. Thank you. So I guess just Mr. Roberts, I think you might have been listening before, but I do think, working with Mr. Hudson on, moving forward and having a plan on that, like 311 PIO, as we said before, are such, integral offices and interfacing with the public. That's important that we really pay attention to that. So I think with that, we'll conclude our this review. Thank you very much, Mr. Roberts, for zooming in. We really appreciate it. Thank you for everyone. Ms. Chen, we do have one more item, but what? So.
I will be remiss. I've been trying 3 years. This is a picture of all the CSRs that take all the phone calls.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I thank them all the time, and I just want to publicly thank them. This was after probably COVID, so thank you so much. I just want to make sure we got you in.
Great, awesome. Thank you so much for that. Yes, thank you for all their work, and I just want to thank Ms. Acevedo, because I think you're done with us now, right? Okay, no more items for you. Thank you. Not, but just for this morning. Thank you very much for your work at OMB, helping us get through this process. So, all right, we will continue that. Our next item is the Merit System Protection Board. All right, as everyone gets situated, this is our last item for this morning. We will reconvene later this afternoon at 1:30, but now we're asking folks from our Merit System Protection Board to join us. And who's kicking us off here? Yep, go ahead.
Good morning, Chair Stewart. Good morning, council members. My name is Logan Anbinder. I'm a postgraduate fellow with Council Central staff. I'm here with Mr. Bruce Martin, the Executive Director of the Merit System Protection Board, with Ms. Harriet Davidson, the Chair of MSPB, and with Ms. Shantae Jackson of OMB. The Merit System Protection Board is established by the county charter to oversee the merit system and to protect employee and job applicant rights guaranteed under the merit system law. And they hear 3 different types of appeals. They hear grievances, disciplinary action or termination, and denial of employment. So with that context, we'll turn to the fiscal summary on item B on the first page of the packet. For FY24, the county executive has recommended a total of $688,031. That is a 2.3% increase, or $15,479 increase over last year's approved FY23. And you'll see from the summary here that the personnel costs the cost increase comes exclusively in personnel costs. There is no recommended increase in operating costs. Before we go on to the budget items specifically, I want to direct your attention to item C2 on page 2, which is the Racial Equity and Social Justice Review. Like other departments, MSPB submitted the Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice's Operating Budget Equity Tool, and ORESJ reviewed that submission and issued a rating of 2 stars, again on a scale of 0 to 3, which indicates that MSPB's department-level budget demonstrates a commitment to advancing racial equity and social justice in the county. The one major comment provided by ORESJ on the justification, and again this is in your packet, is that it would be useful for MSPB to have a sense of the individuals, the demographic background of the individuals who bring cases before the board. MSPB's concern is that as a quasi-judicial agency, it's important to maintain an appearance of impartiality, and so they've made some recommendations here of other offices that might be better suited to collect and analyze that data so that ESJ's recommendation can be taken into account while still allowing the board to maintain that impartiality. So then turning to page 3, just a couple of discussion items for the budget. Again, the only recommended cost increases were personnel and technical adjustments. That accounts for the entire recommended increase of $15,479. Since compensation is being considered separately by this committee and then later by the full council, no vote is needed on this item at this time. The only other thing that I would direct the committee's attention to for possible consideration is regarding MSPB's classification and compensation independent audit. So every 5 years, MSPB is required by law to hire an independent consultant to complete this audit of the county's classification and compensation procedures. The last audit was conducted and delivered to the council in 2018. And so last year, the county executive recommended and the council approved $400,000 to be allocated in each of FY23 and FY24 for this audit. MSPB was not able to secure a vendor in this current fiscal year, FY23, for the audit, and so they have requested, and the county executive has recommended, that this funding just be shifted back a year. So instead of $400,000 in each of FY23 and FY24, it would now be $400,000 in each of FY24 and FY25. So this would be just a 2-time expense in the budget that would be removed from the base budget after FY25. So that's all I have. I'll happy to answer questions or turn it over to Mr. Martin for additional comments.
Great. Thank you for that excellent summary and overview. Mr. Martin, do you want to add anything?
Well, I just you got to share.
Oh. All right. Chair Davidson, would you
Thank
like
you.
to?
The chair of the board is here, and she has some remarks.
Awesome. Thank you.
Good morning. I guess we're still at morning, and I wanted to thank the committee for their past support of the MSPB, and also to thank Logan and Carolyn for their wonderful summary and for all their budget assistance during this whole process. So I think you explained the overview of the MSPB, and what had happened. I guess the only item that we are really discussing here today, which is part of our non-adjudicatory function, is this audit. And the last audit was completed in 2018, and council approved funding in FY23 budget, and we issued an RFP and got no takers. But what we did in response was that we sought feedback from potential offerors to see, what their comments were, and that suggested that possibly the scope of work requested was too extensive. So as a result of that, the board went back and we began to modify the RFP scope of work to see that the necessary audit services would be more feasible. In addition to that, at the suggestion of Selena Singleton, she suggested that we seek advice from SHRM, which is, I think, the Society for Human Resource Management. And so our executive director is going to meet with SHRM and to find out what kind of studies are being conducted in other jurisdictions and what the costs may be, to maybe make some suggestions in terms of the scope of work, and to possibly suggest both public and private contractors who might be interested in conducting a study of this nature. And we are hopeful and confident that this will occur. And so we urge the approval of the county executive's recommended budget. If you have any questions, I'll be very, very happy to answer them.
Great, thank you. Mr. Martin, anything?
No, nothing to add.
No, thank you very much. I think that was a great overview and provided additional information. I think I just had one question, and maybe it's more of a comment. It comes under the racial equity and social justice review, just because my background's in survey methodology, data collection, and statistics, and there are a number of ways of collecting sensitive information like people's race, income, and other things, and not having it identified, being able to go back. And so would love to have that conversation with you in the future, because that's such key information for us as we're doing our racial equity work, and there are a number of models out there that we could look at depending on what the barriers might be for you. So I appreciate the sensitivity and hope that going through the next year, that is something that the board can work on so that we can advance the racial equity work.
Just, excuse me, I appreciate those comments. But I think there is a solution, and that is that the Office of Human Resources is better equipped to gather and analyze this data, because the Office of Human Resources has information on all of the county employees, knows which employees bring cases before the board. They get copies of our decisions so they know the outcome. And they have information about grievances and disciplinary actions, some of which come before us and some of which do not. So we think that there is a viable option to be able to gather this information.
Terrific. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Councilmember Friedson?
Thanks very much. Thank you for all of your work. It's really important. Thank you for your responses. I just had a question about the independent audit. So it's $800,000. The idea is to do it over 2 years. We're a year in. RFP was too broad. You got feedback. You're going to reissue. I'm just wondering. So the $400,000. The challenge that we have in situations like this, and the way that we do these budget reviews, is that we consider the $400,000 not to be an increase, so it basically doesn't show up. But in this case, we actually didn't spend the money. And so the question is, are we encumbering, and this is probably more of a budget question than a merit protection board question, so I will not hold you accountable to this, because it's, you don't care where the money comes from, you just want it to be available when you do the work, which I appreciate. But from our perspective, are we encumbering, I don't understand why we wouldn't be encumbering the $400,000 now if they're already, going to be beginning the work, or are they giving back the money that goes into reserves and then we're reissuing the $400,000 because we're considering it to be unencumbered?
Don't you need a contract or some other obligation to encumber funds?
Well, that's the question about the timing of the RFP and what you would need in order to do that.
Shante Jackson, Office of Management and Budget. We are not encumbering the funds because at this time, Merit System Protection Board does not have a vendor for us to encumber the funds against. We are shifting the funding from, as indicated in the packet, 23 to 24 to 24 to 25. So just in the department's funding parameter, we are making the shift of the funds so that they are available. Merit System Protection Board indicated that they hope to have a vendor selected by the end of the year. They have been working with procurement, and perhaps Mr. Martin could share a little more about the timeline that he thinks the funds will be encumbered.
Yeah, could you cover end of the calendar year or end of the fiscal year?
End of the fiscal year. So we were hoping, it would be nice to get it out and get it resolved and get a response, and it's so possible for it to happen before the end of the calendar year. But here we are at getting close to the end of April, and we still haven't been able to go back to procurement with the new scope of work and the revised RFP, and then go through their process and have it published and released and get responses. One of the responses we got when we surveyed all the people who had downloaded copies of the RFP and to find out why they didn't make offers or proposals. Some of the responses indicated that they felt it was too short a time. It was 30 days, and that wasn't enough time because this is a kind of a complex undertaking. So we're going to extend out the timeline for responses, and so we also have to add that into this process again. And so we're starting to get later into the fall, and so it would be nice to get it done the end of the calendar year, but
are you confident it's going to be done by the end of the fiscal year?
Yes.
Okay. Not related to this particular issue, but in general, the challenge that we have here is that this is $400,000 that is going to go to reserves. And this budget is predicated on over $100 million of one-time revenue sources being used to fund ongoing expenses. Frankly, that's going to include this $400,000. I mean, it's all coming out of the same pot. And so we're using the benefit of having additional resources at the end of the year to increase the size of county government. And, $400,000 is not going to change the fiscal sustainability of this budget, but we're building a $145 million hole to start next year, and it's part, this exacerbate doesn't help that. And so I just, I don't have, if there was a way to encumber it beforehand so that we wouldn't be using this, I was hoping that we could maybe get there. It doesn't sound like that's going to be the case, but, I am concerned because this is another example of a situation. It's not the capital budget. We can't just shift money. I mean, we're talking about this as if it's the capital budget where we have a finite amount of resources over a 6-year period and we're just shifting it within years of that set capital budget. But that's not really what's happening. We are reverting this money back into reserves. We're using that as the basis to spend more money for next year's budget, and then we're reissuing the money next year. And so $400,000 more dollars is going to be spent as a result of this, as far as I can tell. And then we're still going to be spending the same $800,000. And this is where the accounting challenges of a structural budget deficit start to occur. I mean, can you at least
the only thing I would add
concern?
is if Mr. Martin wanted to touch on the fact that he is still looking to see if perhaps a public institution or a bridge contract can be used. So in his meeting with Sherm, I believe he's going to be asking about that. So there is a potential that if he were to find a public institution or another jurisdiction in which he can use a bridge contract, he would need those funds to be available to encumber for a contract. Mr. Martin, did you want to?
That's correct, and that is actually what happened 7 years ago when we did this the last time. We were fortunate enough to find a government entity that had a contract with Montgomery College, I believe it was, and we were able to quickly get a contract within a few weeks. So that there's a potential for that to occur.
Well, can you report back to us if you're able to do that? I mean, I think that is a more ideal outcome for a lot of reasons. One, we fulfill the legal responsibility to start this within 5 years, which we're not on track to do if we don't do that. It's not your fault. It's not our fault. It's just that is the situation. And two, I think it prevents us from this fiscal spiral that I am concerned about, of which this is only a very small part, but is a part, which is not your concern. It's our concern as the appropriators of funds and the fiscal stewards. So maybe we can do, kind of conditional approval. Maybe we'll hear back from them before the end of the budget, so at least we can note this for our colleagues on the full council, and maybe by the time we approve the final budget, we'll have clarity on that. If you think there's a possibility that there
that
could be.
Would be. I'm sorry. When would that be? What's the?
So we're approving the budget at the end of May. So that would be
the end of May. Well, we'll have the meeting I have with the SHRM people and Selena is Monday the 24th, I believe. Yeah, it's the 24th. Yes. So it's Monday the 24th, and if they have some very useful information on the public sector, that would be great, because you can move. I'm not aware of any bridge contracts we can use in Montgomery County. There may be some other jurisdiction that I don't know about that's got something, so that could happen quickly. But ideally,
maybe the chair of COG has some ideas. If only I had a good friend who knew somebody over in the Council of Governments that has intimate relationships in every regional government around the area.
But the other option would be if there are government entities, public sector entities that could do this work. So we've been, trying to check universities. I know that the University of Southern California's got an institute that can do these kinds of studies and others. So, but tracking down and then making the arrangements with them, we could do it as fast as we can.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? No? All right. Well, thank you, and we look forward to the additional information.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye. All right. With that, I think this session of Government Operations Fiscal Policy Committee is done. We are adjourned, and we will join you back here at 1:30 for our next session. Thank you.